Hey everyone, today I'm going to be talking about how to interrupt undesirable behavior without having to use physical or psychological intimidation to do it. A lot of people have the misconception that if you're using positive reinforcement to train your dog, that you're supposed to ignore unwanted behavior. This is simply not true and also a really bad idea because most of the behaviors that we find undesirable in dogs are usually self-reinforcing, or in other words, the dogs enjoy doing them. For example, chewing on your furniture or barking when they see a dog passing in the street. If you just ignore these behaviors, they're going to gather a reinforcement history and they're going to be really hard to get rid of in the future because your dog has been rehearsing them for a long period of time. So in my training, and I suggest in your training, it's really important if you see a behavior you don't like, you need to either figure out a way to prevent that behavior by managing the environment as you train your dog appropriate behaviors, or you need to interrupt that behavior as soon as you see it. So if you see your puppy going to chew on your furniture, you can interrupt your puppy. But a lot of people believe that you have to use punishment to interrupt undesirable behavior, but this is really not true. I've been training dogs with this method for over 15 years, and I've never seen any issues arise from this method, and I actually believe it's a better way of training. That's why I use it, because what happens is you don't get any of the side effects that are associated with punishment, and that is why I use this method. I don't believe that it's cruel or inhumane to tell your puppy or your adult dog that you've just rescued no or when they do certain behaviors you dislike, but I really believe that by using a interrupter that you've trained, like a cue that tells your dog what to do, is a much better way of training because you don't get the baggage of punishment. Here's a list of the different ways that you can interrupt your dog without using physical or psychological intimidation. An attention noise, recall, leave it, stationing behavior, drop it, let's go, an alternate behavior, treat lure, release cue, or move the dog. First, you need to set up training sessions to train your dog these behaviors. You might only need one or two depending on your situation, but once you've trained your dog the behavior, you then need to proof the behavior in proofing sessions, which simply means asking for the behavior in different scenarios and different environments to make sure the dog understands that no matter what situation, the same behavior is required. I have videos on how to train, I believe, all of these different ways to interrupt behavior in the description below, and it also gives examples of proofing the behaviors. Now I'm going to talk about all those different behaviors on the list, starting with the attention noise. I think this is the easiest and the quickest interrupter to train, so I'll use it with new clients and new trainers and new rescue dogs and puppies who haven't had any prior training because it's quick and easy. Now, all you have to do is make a kissy noise, and when your dog looks up at you, you mark and reinforce your dog for looking at you. Once you've trained and proofed that behavior, then if your dog is doing something that you don't really like, you can make the kissy noise. Your dog looks at you to say, "What?" And then you can tell your dog what you do want them to do. And if they don't know any cues yet, you can show your dog. So say if your puppy is chewing on the wall, you can make the kissy noise and then show them their ball. Now, it's really important when you're interrupting behavior that you understand that it's not the interrupting of the behavior that is important in creating a well-mannered dog. The really important thing is training your dog what you do want them to do. So puppies chew. So if you are simply just trying to punish them for chewing your furniture, they're going to keep wanting to chew. So the best solution is training them what to chew on, which is their dog toys, their bones. So in this video, I'm talking about interrupting behavior, but if the only training that you do with your dog is interrupting them, then that's the only time that you're giving them attention. So even if you were to use punishment and you were telling your dog no every time they touch things and ignore your dog all the other times, your dog is going to start to want to do undesirable behavior to get your attention. So with this training, it's extremely important to reinforce the behaviors you do want your dog to do, like relaxing calmly when you're ignoring your dog. Okay, so that's number one, the attention noise. The second one is a recall. Say your dog is at a distance and you need your dog to move away from something. You can teach them to come to you when you call them. The third one that I like to use is the leave it cue. And a lot of people ask me, what's the difference between a kissy noise, an attention noise, a recall, and a leave it cue? For me, I like to train the dog. Leave it means don't bother that specific thing, but you can do anything you want. So for example, I'll show you a video of my Chihuahua. As you can see, she's a little bit too interested in the chicken, so I'm going to tell her to leave it.
Kiko, leave it. Good girl.
The difference between the attention noise is after asking her to leave it, she does check in with me a little bit, but she then goes and does whatever she likes, rather than just staring at me. A stationing behavior. You can teach your dog to go to his bed or go to a crate or some other location, and then you can use that to interrupt behavior you don't like. For example, if your dogs were starting to play rough or get too excited, you could say go to their bed, and then they could take a break, and then you could release them to play again. Or perhaps you have a guest come over and your dog gets a little bit excited. You can tell your dog to go to their bed, and then they can relax, and when they feel more calm, then they can interact with the guest again. The drop cue. The drop cue can come in handy if you have a puppy or a new dog that likes to tug on your clothes or pull on the leash, or perhaps picks things up like your underwear or things on a walk. You can tell the dog to drop it and then tell your dog what you do want them to do. Like, for example, on a walk, if your dog is mouthing on the leash, you can say drop, and then you can point in the grass and say go sniff, and get them interested in sniffing on the walk or an interesting smell on a bush instead of yanking on their leash. Let's go. This is a cue that means I am moving, move with me, and you can use it when you're walking your dog on leash. It's great if you have a reactive dog and you notice they're getting a little bit worried about something in the environment. You can say, let's go, and then move in the opposite direction. It gives your dog the opportunity to know that you're going to be moving instead of just startling them by pulling on their leash to go in the other direction. Now, another great use for let's go is if your dogs are meeting on leash and then you see your dogs getting a little bit too excited, or perhaps the other dog is getting too excited, you can say let's go to teach your dog to move away from that other dog. Alternate behavior. If you have a dog that is doing a behavior you don't like, you can cue them to do a behavior that is incompatible with the one that they're doing. For example, if you have a dog that's in your lap, guarding your lap from another dog coming over, you could cue your dog to back away from you. And I have a video on how to train that in the description. Using a treat lure to interrupt behavior. I like to use a treat as a lure to interrupt behavior, especially in training sessions when I'm training behaviors. For example, a downstay. If the dog was in a downstay and I raised criteria too quickly and the dog doesn't understand that to get the treat, they need to stay, and the dog was to get up and follow me, I could quickly get a treat, lure the dog back into the position, lure them into the down with a treat, not give them the treat because I don't want them to learn that getting up immediately gets them a treat. Then I make criteria a little bit easier than the last trial, meaning say I went 30 feet away, now I'm just going to go 5 feet away, mark and reinforce the dog for staying in the down position. And the reason that I like to use this way of interrupting behavior is because if I set the training up to be too hard for the dog, why should the dog be the one who gets punished for my crappy training plan? So I like to say to myself, oops, I messed up. I'm going to reinforce this dog for an easier behavior and then figure out a way to raise criteria where the dog is understanding what I want every step of the way. Using a release cue to interrupt behavior. I like to use the release cue for a sit stay or down stay. For my dogs, it's free, which means to get up. I like to use that for dogs who guard space. So for example, if I go to a client's house and the dog guards the couch and the dog already has a sit stay where the owner says sit and then they say release and the dog runs to them happily, you can use that cue, which has a conditioned emotional response of yay, I love getting up. And use that for the resource guarder. So the dog's laying on the couch, another dog comes over, you see your dog about to guard the couch, you can release your dog off the couch by saying free, and then your dog comes to you, and if they haven't guarded yet, you can reinforce them with a treat. But if they have guarded, you could then wait a little bit and use a different behavior that you like in the future that they're going to do to reinforce that instead. You don't want to always reinforce your dog quickly after you've interrupted them from doing a behavior you dislike. The important thing is doing training sessions where you build these cues to be reinforcing for your dog so they want to listen to you and want to be doing these alternate behaviors, but you don't want to quickly give out treats when your dog is doing behaviors you don't like. So use the cue to interrupt behaviors. Don't give them a treat, but give them a treat for an alternate behaviors throughout the day that they're doing that you do like. The final behaviors that I'm going to be talking about involve getting your dog or moving your dog when your dog can't listen to you. Either they've had not enough training, or they're too excited or fearful or scared in that circumstance, but you need to move them. For example, you have a puppy, they're going to chew on a paracord. You say, "Papa, puppy," you make your kissy noise, you try to encourage them to get away from the cord. Your dog is not listening to you, you need to move your dog. You also maybe don't want them to learn to chew on your really expensive furniture. Your puppy's not listening, get your dog. Pick the puppy up and move them away. Now, you don't need to do this in an intimidating way. The idea is you don't want to use intentional physical or psychological intimidation. Now, it could be true that if you pick your puppy up, they're like, "Whoa, I don't really like being held." And then you say to yourself, "Oh no, my puppy doesn't like being picked up." So instead of just always picking your puppy up and starting to turn being picked up into a punishment, you want to spend many sessions training your puppy to like being picked up, especially if you have little dogs. It's so convenient to be able to pick up your little dog without them feeling like it's some type of intimidation game. So there's a video that I have on, you can also teach your little dog to jump into your arms, but teaching your little dog to have your hands grab them and have it be a positive experience. So I have a video on that. Another one for bigger dogs, if you have a very large dog and you can't pick them up, you're going to need to take their collar and move them away from whatever dangerous situation they're in or some behavior that you really don't want them to learn. For example, putting their paws up on the stove. You want to get them away from that stove as quick as possible before they start licking up crumbs on the stove and they're not listening to you. You're going to take their collar and you're going to move them off the stove or move them with your hands. Now, the idea is if you don't do any training, most dogs find physical movement, pushing, shoving, moving them by the collar, really not fun and very punishing. So you have to set up training sessions where your dog understands that these behaviors are cues to mean move with me. So check out the collar grab video. And then the final one is leash pressure. So if you have a dog, say you're walking down the street and you see a bicycle coming and they're not stopping, they're not going to stop for your dog, they're going to run over your dog, or a truck in the road, you need to move your dog because they're not listening to you. You say, "Let's go," you say, "Come," nothing fluffy, and your dog doesn't move, you have to move them. So when you pull them on the leash, most dogs don't like it very much and they find it punishing. So what you need to do is set up training sessions where you teach your dog that when they feel pressure on leash, it simply means to turn and come with you. And that way, when you need to use leash pressure in emergencies, the dog understands what you want them to do, and it's been a reinforced behavior so they don't find it so aversive. It's great to use leash pressure with dogs who are fearful or reactive with other dogs, because sometimes when they alert on the thing that they're scared of, you can prevent them from reacting by saying, "Let's go," and if they're not listening, moving them further away on leash to an area where they can relax, and then you can prevent your dog from having a rehearsal of lunging and barking at another dog. I hope you guys found this video helpful and it didn't put you to sleep like it did my dogs. If you'd like to support my channel, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And also there's a join button to become a member. So I just want to do a quick shout out and thank all the members of channel Kikopup. Bye guys!